Alright, so GORR is a very interesting champion. In my opinion, I feel like he is one of the best buffs to ever come out, and there's a lot to learn about this guy, right? Because he has a lot of rotations. His mastery setup is very unique because of his interaction with the recoil masteries. There's also things to learn about his signature ability because 6200 might be a little bit overkill, so I just want to cover that as well. Also, like, his synergies and how they're pretty inefficient, and just overall usefulness, because I feel like this guy is a very useful character, and I just want to go over like where you will probably use him the most. So yeah, let's just not waste any time, let's get right into it. So what are the best rotations for GORR? Well, he alters his rotations depending on the opponent's health. So for example, in the 400-600,000 health pool range, he does the double God Bomb rotation. In like the lesser range, like the 150,000, 250,000, he does the single God Bomb rotation. That's like the Battlegrounds rotation pretty much. And in long fights, he does the SP2 Fury loop. So I'm going to show some examples of all these rotations. So for the short fights, you want to go for a single God Bomb rotation, which is just spamming light attacks right to build up your shadow magic. And then when you get to like 2 of each stack, you just want to do double mediums to build up your damage over time debuffs. And then once you get to like 9 or 10 of each, you just throw the SP3 and it'll just one-shot the opponent. This is ideal for like Battlegrounds, general questing, just a very solid rotation, and it's very easy to do as well. There's almost like no stress, I feel like. So as you can see here, we have 2 of each stack, so we're going to go for some double mediums now as we build up to our SP3. So by the time we get to the SP3, we'll have like 9 or 10 of each stack, and we'll just detonate it, and it'll just do a ton of damage output. So yeah, overall, not too bad of a rotation, a pretty fast one as well. Like, I think the total fight time was about 42 seconds, and this Venom Duck had 200,000 health, so not too shabby at all. And now let's go over the medium fight rotation. So for this rotation, you want to go for the same exact thing, but instead of like just ending the fight with it, you're going to have to go into another SP3, but thankfully he has a power gain, right? So this power gain really lowers the fight time, and it makes it a pretty fast fight overall. So just build up your shadow magics by doing light ending combos, and then once you get to like 3 of each, you want to go for double mediums, and then just detonate with the God Bomb, then drop your heavy attack for more power gain, and then do another God Bomb, and then that'll be it. Pretty fun rotation. Like, the SP3 is so satisfying to fire off, and the damage output is just amazing. So as you see right here, we have 3 of each now, so we're just gonna go for some double mediums and keep building that damage over time. So we're gonna have like about 10 of each by the time we get to the SP3, and then once that happens, we'll go... Actually, no, because you can just keep doing it until you run out of like your shadow magic. I like to do it until I get like right before the expiration of the first shadow magic buff, and then I'll go for the SP3 here. And then see, it does a lot of damage, right? But he still has like half his health. But then we drop the power gain, right? So we get all of our power, and we're back to the SP3. So we can just go in for a double medium and repeat the cycle, and then he'll be down. Overall, just a very like simple rotation. He has 1% health there, but then he just drops. And that was a 106 fight, which is very, very impressive. Now for long fights, you want to build right below an SP3, drop your SP2, make sure you have 3 debuffs on so you get the maximum Fury buffs, and then drop another SP2 like once you get close to the second bar power. And then after that, you just want to drop your heavy attack for the power gain, use it to get another SP2, and then finally get another SP2 to have 16 Fury buffs, and then repeat SP1 to maintain your shadow magics. That's the long fight rotation in my opinion. I think it's the most potent fight time. I think it's like sub 4 minutes for 3 million health, which is not too bad at all. So you see right here, we're going to drop the heavy attack. We'll get to an SP2. I dropped the SP2 into the block, unfortunately. He just didn't play ball there, so I take like a hit here. But as you see, we're almost back into SP2 already, so that's like 16 Furies now. So it's a very fun rotation. No synergies, by the way. Like, none of this had any synergies in it. Not even this one right here with the Fury buffs. This is just like pure GORR, right? So it can work for literally any health pool with no synergies. That is just phenomenal. Most champions can't really do that. So yeah, overall, just a very awesome time with GORR. And that's how you do the long fight rotation. It's pretty fun. Like, the 16 Furies is pretty nice, but, you know, it's like pretty rare to use this rotation in my opinion, but it's still fun to do. So now let's talk about Masteries. GORR does not need any Masteries at all. None are absolutely vital for him. He just doesn't need any, right? Deep Wounds can be great if like you're fighting in Battlegrounds and you know like they just have a pint of health left, and he just applies like 3 bleeds and it just like takes them away instantly because of like the secondary ability of Deep Wounds. Also, if you have an Unawakened GORR, you're missing out on some damage over time debuff duration, but Deep Wounds can help that. It'll like help make up for like the lack of the Awakened ability. But now let's talk about the recoil masteries, right? This is the important thing. GORR will not die from the recoil masteries, but he will linger on 30 to 50% of his health because he doesn't have willpower, right? But instead, he gets a regeneration buff every time he like triggers a shadow magic, and like he has one of the debuffs on him. So if you don't like playing at low health, I do not suggest running the Recoil Masteries with GORR. Additionally, it's a very minimal increase overall. I feel like it does help the damage over time debuffs, but it doesn't help the God Bomb at all, and I feel like that's where the majority of the damage is with GORR. So overall, I feel like it's not really a necessity at all, and I feel like I wouldn't really suggest it, right? But he does work with them. Like, he will not die with them. He will just be like at a very low health pool for a pretty like strong majority of the fight. So just keep that in mind whenever you want to use the Recoil Masteries with GORR, but you will get a pretty nice benefit for the damage over time debuffs. So let's talk about the signature ability. It provides a very strong Undermine, which has pretty much 100% uptime, and increases damage over time debuff duration by up to 4 seconds, right? And the signature level, it kind of varies, because 6 to 100 is kind of overkill for the Undermine. It makes it last 16 seconds, which is, in my opinion, just way too much, right? And Sig 1, it only lasts 10 seconds, which is kind of a bit stressful in my opinion. So I feel like anywhere between 40 and 100 is a sweet spot, because it gives you like a 12 to 14 second duration, which is like very solid, right? But it's not like too stressful, and it's not too much overkill. But if you want to be like a true GORR sweat, then just take it to 60-100, because like it helps the damage over time debuff duration as well, so you'll have that benefit additionally. GORR does not need any synergies in the slightest. Contrary to his prebuff self, he just works perfect alone, and he doesn't need any help. But there are some that are pretty decent for him, like the Confetti War Thor and GORR Trinity is pretty great for him, because it extends his Shadow Magic buff duration and his Undermine buff duration and his Fury buff duration, right? Because it's good for the very long fights, because his Fury buff duration isn't the longest, but like you don't really use it in the more practical fights anyway, so that's why it's not really too important. But with the Synergy team, you can get a very long Fury buff duration, and it lets him get up to like 24 Fury, so it's pretty nice overall. The Null Synergy gives a vicious buff whenever you launch a heavy attack, which can be nice because GORR, his damage is like a mix between the God Bomb and his damage over time debuffs, so it can be a nice increase, but overall it's really not needed, so I wouldn't deem it as like a necessary synergy. So where will you use GORR, right? I feel like GORR is a very powerful general DPS, and that means that he has a variety of rotations, which lets him be viable for like any game mode, right? You know, Battlegrounds, Alliance War, Labyrinth, Abyss, you know, Act 8, Act 7, just you name it, he has a rotation for it, and he's very good for it overall, in my opinion. His utility is a bit of like, it depends, right? Because if your GORR is unawakened, he kind of is just being a pure damage dealer, but he still has access to like a lot of buffs and debuffs, and can be useful versus like, you know, buff heavy matchups and debuff heavy matchups. He can still block healing with his debuffs if you have a Despair Mastery, even unawakened, right? But when he's awakened, he becomes a very strong auto block counter. So that really extends his usefulness overall. So you can use it for like Penny Parker, just any auto block fight he becomes very good for. And I feel like he has a lot of usefulness overall. It's because his damage output is very strong and it's very easy to access, and it's pretty fast as well. So yeah, GORR, just a very strong character, and I feel like he has a lot of general usage and a lot of viability and a lot of content. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this GORR guide. Hopefully this helps just like get a general gist of the character, like where he's best used, his best rotation, synergies, things like that. So yeah, overall, I just love the buff. I love how useful he is. I feel like he's viable everywhere. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on GORR, and that's about it for me.